Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's live stream news summary from Moscow program. As always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to, and hopefully you will find this episode informative, interesting, useful. And in that case, please click that like button and leave some commentary. Might be very helpful to this project and for me to reach wider audience, and also to those people on these platforms on YouTube and Rumble that might want to hear from Russia, but due to all sorts of algorithmic tricks, they are unable to see, for example, my videos ever in the recommendations. So if you can click that like button, leave some commentary, share information about the existence of my channel with your friends. That's being said, dear friends, of course, it is 4th of May now, 3 p.m. Moscow time, and without further delay, let's go through some news now that I have bookmarked for today's update. And I will start with this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation, that past night Russian Air Defense Forces intercepted 272 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO member states, as it is always the case, because Kyiv regime on its own simply unable to either produce large quantities of long-range drones or to launch those drones, because they cannot they don't have satellite navigation, they cannot come up with flight path targeting data on their own, only with their assistance, direct assistance of the NATO member states, US and UK, first and foremost, although Germany and all the others are participating too in this war against the Russian Federation. And so drones were intercepted over the Belgorod, Bryansk, Volgograd, Voronezh, Kursk, Nizhny Novgorod, Oryol, Rostov, Ryazan, Tambov regions of the Republic of Crimea, over the waters of the Azov and the Black Seas. 272 drones were intercepted, which most likely means at least 300 plus drones were launched. Unfortunately, number of drones are almost on regular basis are managing to bypass air defense forces of the Russian Federation and to streak certain areas. Past night was no exception in this regard, and unfortunately we have reports about casualties among Russian civilians. For example, this reporter on RIA Novosti News Agency said that 3 people were killed in Ukrainian airstrike, drone strike on Simferopol, which is the capital of Crimean Autonomous Republic of the Russian Federation. Let me give you more details on this attack. So 3 people were killed and 7 more were wounded in a Ukrainian armed forces strike on non-residential buildings in Simferopol. Crimean Governor Sergei Aksyonov reported on a telegram as a result of an enemy strike on non-residential buildings in Simferopol, which indicates probably strike on industrial facilities, probably some other infrastructure. According to preliminary data, 3 people were killed and 7 more were injured. Aksyonov wrote about it. Emergency services are working at their scene. Also, unfortunately, there was another tragedy that occurred when Kyiv regime, with assistance of NATO member states, struck a passenger train. 1 person was killed when a Ukrainian drone struck a commuter train in Crimea. Also, head of the Republic, Sergei Aksyonov, announced there 3 more civilians were wounded in an attack by enemy drone on a commuter train traveling from Azov to Kerch. Authorities will provide all necessary assistance and support, he wrote on his Max platform. So as you can see, dear friends, there are more and more casualties are occurring as a result of these long-range attacks on Russian Federation. And as I have predicted quite a long time now, as more and more NATO member states are directly involved in mass drone productions that then are used against Russian Federation, there was always a high risk that tragically casualty numbers among Russian civilians will began rapidly rising also, and that's exactly what is happening. Yesterday, according to reports, 15 Russian civilians were killed, at least 15 civilians were killed, several dozen wounded, and today, based on preliminary data, we can say that 4 more civilians were killed, and there are dozen of civilians wounded, all because of their direct involvement of the NATO member states in this war against the Russian Federation. Also, dear friends, yesterday there was also a big, large-scale drone attack on Russian Federation, and one of the main directions was St. Petersburg city, Leningrad region, and the St. Petersburg city, where first day was yesterday of work of St. Petersburg's International Economical Forum. If you watch my yesterday's update, you know that in the Leningrad region, for example, 59 drones were intercepted by Russian air defense systems. So all these drones entered Russian airspace from European NATO member states, from Baltic NATO member states, Estonia, to be more precise, for sure, possibly from Finland also, because that's their usual trajectory of their drones that are used against Russian Federation in Leningrad region and against St. Petersburg, at least. There was some damage, by the way, and casualties also as a result of this yesterday's large-scale attack. In St. Petersburg, for example, energy infrastructure was targeted, some civilian infrastructure was targeted. There you can see some of the aftermath of these attacks on your screen right now. Also, Governor of St. Petersburg, Alexander Bigelow, reported that infrastructure facilities were targeted also inside St. Petersburg itself, in the Kronstadt Island, for example, which is formerly part of St. Petersburg's district, I believe. In the Kronstadt, there was attacks also in the Kirovsky and Krasnoselsky districts of the city, and there were a number of casualties among civilians as a result of this attack. In Kronstadt Island, where Russian naval base is located there, according to many reports, Corvette Boyki was struck. Corvette that was escorting, for example, Russian vessels from Shadow Fleet. In 2025, for example, through English Channel, or La Manche, as I call it, right? I don't use English Channel, really. I say La Manche. Yesterday, dear friends, I shared the information that day prior to this large-scale attack on the Leningrad region, Prime Minister of Estonia made a statement that Estonian forces are unable to track all the drones and to deal with all of them, right? They never deal with any of these drones, obviously, but for plausible deniability, Estonian Prime Minister, ahead of this large-scale attack on Russia's Leningrad region, made a statement to basically, at least formally, distance Estonia from this attack on Russian Federation. Let me give you some details once again about statements of this creature. So Estonia cannot track and shut down every drone that enters its territory. Prime Minister Kristen Michal stated in an interview with the local broadcaster. Sputnik media outlet is reporting, Sputnik Belarus in this particular case, but many others reported too. We should not expect that we will always and everywhere be able to spot all drones and shut them down everywhere, he said. Michal explained that some anti-drone weapons cannot be used in densely populated areas, while others are positioned in specific locations to engage targets, and it is difficult for aircraft to shut down drones due to difference in speed. That's what this idiot is saying. that was being appointed by globalists as a prime minister of Estonia. Yet again, a clear attempt to speculate with a plausible deniability there. Estonia never even attempted to intercept any of their drones, Ukrainian/NATO drones that are using Estonia's airspace to strike Russian Federation, Leningrad region, for example, of the Russian Federation. And moreover, Estonia most definitely, in my personal opinion, is providing ground for a launch of these drones. And you know, dear friends, I have said many times before that whenever northern parts of Russian Federation are targeted, most definitely these drones are launched from NATO territory, either from NATO ground itself, from the ground of the NATO countries, or drones might be launched from, let's say, western parts of Ukraine. Then these drones have to cross. There is only one way, right? They can reach Leningrad region. They have to cross Polish territory, Polish airspace. Then through Suwalki Gap, they have to enter Lithuania, then Latvia, and they might try to attack Russian Federation from Latvian territory, and there was such instances before, or they might continue northwards, enter Estonian territory, strike Russian Federation from Estonian side, or further continue, fly northwards, enter Finnish territory, then turn around and strike Leningrad region and St. Petersburg from the north, from Finnish airspace. And that's what always happens whenever there is attacks on Leningrad region and the St. Petersburg. That's exactly what is happening. Airspace of these NATO member states are used, and they are coming up every now and then with these very poor attempts to speculate with, to exercise plausible deniability that, oh, we cannot shut down, we cannot track, we cannot do, we cannot that. While in reality, they are providing, most definitely, they are providing ground for these launches, and they are providing, for sure, 100%, by the way, their airspace. They are direct participants into this war against Russian Federation. They are targeting Russia, right? Let's be clear on that. And so there was this poor attempt of Estonian prime minister to speculate with this plausible deniability topic. And then today we have also this update from Finnish Defense Ministry. According to this particular report, well, they knew, Helsinki knew that drone attack was planned on St. Petersburg, on Leningrad region, and of course they did nothing to stop these drones, of course, but they are acknowledging that they knew, right? Let me give you details on that. Finnish Defense Minister Antti Haikinen stated that Finnish intelligence was aware of a drone attack planned on St. Petersburg yesterday. He added that if the drones have violated Finnish airspace, Finland was prepared to shut them down, which is a lie. Yet another very poor quality, let's say, of attempt to exercise plausible deniability on their behalf. They never targeted Ukrainian drones. They never shut down Ukrainian drones. Only instance when, according to reports, Ukrainian/NATO drone was allegedly shut down was over the Latvia, I believe, over the Latvia, isn't it? A couple of weeks ago. That was probably local authorities have a fear in that instance that drone might slash into some infrastructure there in that Baltic NATO member states, and that was the reason, I guess, that they went to intercept a drone. If that even happened, maybe they were just lying. And now Finnish Defense Minister is making public statement that they knew about this attack on the Russian Federation, and if drone would cross into Finnish airspace, they were ready to intercept them, which is also a lie. And I would like to hear some statements from Russian Defense Ministry, from where exactly these drones yesterday appear in the Leningrad region and in St. Petersburg. For sure, it was Estonia, right? For sure, it was Estonia. But I would like to see statement of Russian Defense Ministry to know level of involvement of Finland in that attack, because, dear friends, there are many videos that are circulating on internet when these drones that were targeting St. Petersburg were flying not just over the ground, but also over the Gulf of Finland. And there is only two areas from where these drones could enter Gulf of Finland. It's Estonia and Finland, right? So maybe Russian defense ministry will share some information with the public. There was not a single statement, by the way. Surprisingly, somewhat, Russian defense minister did not make a single statement about involvement of these NATO member states in attacks, in yesterday's attacks on St. Petersburg, for example, which is mind-boggling. I mean, I don't think this is okay or this is normal. This is not normal, of course, but I don't know, man. I'm monitoring constantly Russian media outlets, leading media outlets at least, and there was not a single statement published on these media outlets from defense ministry, which is, I don't know, man. Which is not okay. Not okay, man. This is not the way state institutions should operate, but who am I? Who am I to judge, isn't it? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is exactly the way our state institutions should operate, while ignoring almost everything. Maybe. I don't know, but that's what is happening. That's what is happening. These NATO member states are so emboldened that they are now taking a piece. Basically, they are laughing at us. Prime Minister of Estonia, Defense Minister of Finland, they are basically laughing at us, right? While making these kind of statements. Yeah, we knew there was an attack coming towards you. What you gonna do about it? That's basically the statement that Finland is making, right? And I'm afraid we're not gonna do anything about it. I'm afraid we're not gonna do anything about it, at least as long as we have a current leadership, right? That's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think as long as Russian president is Vladimir Putin, and as long as Russia has elites that are fixated, mostly, maybe not all of them, but many of them are fixated on Western elites and their approval, and they want to be, they are seeking some freaking attention from Western elites. I mean, they are ready to do anything to be acknowledged by Western elites, right? So as long as this is the case, right, as long as Russia is led by people like this, man, of course, nothing will be done against any European NATO member state that is directly engaged in a mass killing of the Russian citizens. Very unfortunate reality, but nevertheless, that's the reality of the modern days. That's where we are, right? And that's why nothing had happened until now. It's a fifth year of the war that West is waging against us, man. It's a fifth year. And there never, ever Russian military and security services during this time were authorized to retaliate on the NATO member states that are not just directly involved in this war, by the way, but are guilty of death of tens of thousands of Russian citizens. So I don't think there is much reason to believe that something going to change from now on. Anything is possible, but well, I'm skeptical that we're going to see some significant changes in Moscow's policies, right? As long as Russian president is Putin, by the way, and he's going to be Russian president for quite a while, isn't it? Next presidential elections is in, I don't know, 2020 what? 8 or 2030? I don't even know. Anyways, this autumn at least we're going to have a parliamentary election, and I'm quite sure very many people, even those that are or used to be supporters of Vladimir Putin, definitely going to send a message to him while voting for opposition parties, right, during that election. Quite sure that's going to be happened if elections will even take place, because Kremlin, of course, monitoring the situation, and they understand people, many people. I would not say majority or minority or whatever, but many people are upset, very much upset and disappointed with their response that Russian leadership is giving to aggression of their European NATO member states or NATO member states in general. That includes US too, obviously, right? But meanwhile, while Russia is exercising restraint policy towards aggressor, which is NATO countries, of course, These NATO countries, their leadership globally, they are becoming more and more emboldened. They are intensifying long-range attacks on the Russian Federation. They are killing more and more Russian civilians, obviously, destroying more and more infrastructure on Russian territory, including strategical infrastructure. And well, as a result of these massive attacks, constant massive attacks on Russian energy sector, for example, in quite a number of regions already there was some energy shortages or let's say some restrictions implemented when it comes to sales of gasoline or the diesel. And yesterday I mentioned, isn't it, that LPR, for example, implemented also among their other regions some restrictions. And this morning I went to check how many regions overall implemented restrictions, right? When it comes to energy, this gasoline sales and diesel sales. And according to reports that I see on internet, in Russian language segment of internet, restrictions on the sale of fuel, gasoline, diesel have been imposed already in at least 17 regions of Russia. At least 17 regions of Russia, by the way, already energy, some level of energy shortages, I guess, right? Because that's why these restrictions are introduced, not out of good life, I guess, right? There is some shortage, and then there is some restrictions in place. That's how it works, isn't it? So according to this number of sources, since the end of May, residents of Crimea, Ryazan, Kursk, Pskov, Belgorod, Moscow too, by the way, Tomsk, Murmansk, Voronezh, Oryol, and their Novgorod regions, the Kamchatka and the Krasnoyarsk territories, and Karelia, as well as Moscow city and St. Petersburg, have faced various restrictions on the sale of this motor fuel. Furthermore, the Russian authorities in LPR, as I already mentioned, have imposed also restrictions, and in total, as of now, at least in 17 regions, these kind of some sort of restrictions are being introduced either by local authorities or by energy companies themselves. In most cases, I mean, there are certain regions of southern Russia where there are relatively strict restrictions. Gasoline can be bought only on coupons, for example. And even then, I mean, when you want to buy gasoline in some regions, you can only buy like 20 liters, for example, at once. In most cases, restrictions are beginning if you want to buy like more than 50 liters of gasoline, for example. 50 liters of gasoline a day, that's quite enough, really, right? If you are not planning to cross entire Russia, then you'll be okay with 50 liters of gasoline. On a diesel, there is a higher margin, right? You can buy, I believe, at least 100 liters of diesel if you want to, but nevertheless, this is restrictions implemented, as I said, either by local authorities or by companies themselves, energy companies themselves, which is, of course, visible. Everybody sees this, right? And people are beginning to ask more questions, right? In most cases, as I said, restrictions involve a ban on selling fuel in canisters too, right? You can fill your tank in a car, but you cannot buy like more gasoline if you want to while bringing with you canisters. There are some limitations on the quantity, on the volume, as I already mentioned, and there is really rare cases, at least according to what I find out while researching this matter. There are rare cases when gas stations just don't have fuel. They are running out of fuel, right? This happens particularly with the small companies, right, that might have only 1-2 gas stations, like several gas stations. Big companies, they have fuel, and they are introducing limitations when it comes to what volume of gasoline you can buy. So this is quite significant, isn't it? And this was predictable. Isn't it? For how many months now Russian energy sector is being targeted by NATO member states? And of course, all these attacks are orchestrated by US and UK, isn't it? First and foremost, by US and by UK. So it was predictable that at some point we will face certain energy crisis inside our territory, at least inside the European part of the Russian Federation, where majority of Russian population lives actually, right? And in order to prevent deterioration of the situation in regards to energy field, for example, of course, it was absolutely necessary, like many months ago, to take some strong actions against NATO member states that are engaged in this war against Russia to restore deterrence so that the regime will be left alone. And in that case, of course, Russia will finalize special military operation in relatively short time, because without direct involvement and of the NATO countries in this war, and without direct assistance of NATO countries to this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, of course, Kiev not going to last for long. We all understand this, right? But unfortunately, Russian leadership took a pause as if everything is okay, everything is according to plan, and now we are where we are. And I'm afraid situation will only get worse from here, because yet again, only way you can change the situation is if you are restoring deterrent with the NATO. No matter how many times we're going to strike on the Kiev-controlled territory. Most of the drones, plus satellite intelligence, flight path, targeting data, all of this is getting to Kiev-controlled territory from the NATO member states, from the West. So therefore, you have to take action against the source. Am I correct? This is just the basics, isn't it? Or am I crazy, by the way, while saying so? If you are not dealing with the root causes of the crisis that you are dealing with, then you're not going to be able to actually resolve it in a way you want. Correct? And root causes of this crisis leads us towards the Western countries, towards the NATO member states. But yet again, nothing was done to restore deterrent. These leaders of Western countries feel free to do whatever they want against Russian Federation, literally, whatever they want, right? And their situation is getting more and more critical, more and more critical. I mean, this is just an objective reality. And you might wonder, dear friends, one thing is, of course, energy crisis when it comes to domestic market, right, here in Russia. But you might wonder what's going on in terms of energy exports of the Russian Federation, oil exports, for example. And I find on the Vzгляд newspaper this quite interesting, informative article, by the way, on this, which includes this topic also. And let's go together through this material, because I think you will find it interesting too. Because a lot of statistics in this material. So let's start from the beginning, right? Ministry of Finance reported an oil and gas budget revenues. In May, they increased again by more than a third. However, don't let this information mislead you, by the way. In May, there was increase, but overall, it's a significant decrease. So let's go through details. In May, they increased again by more than a third. However, for the past 5 months, oil and gas revenues were still a third lower than the previous year. Third lower, by the way, than previous year. You think, why is that? Especially now when there is an energy freaking crisis all over the world. And how come that we are selling less now than we were selling past year, same time? And you know the answer, isn't it? Why is that? So why is this happening, and what kind of oil and ruble rate does their budget need to earn exactly what it planned this year? Vzгляд newspaper is asking, and let's go now through details how they come up with some answers. So in May, Russian Russia's oil and gas tax revenues, which accounts for 1/5 of the budget. So you remember, dear friends, whenever there was talks about Russian energy sector being key for Russian budget, I was always saying that this is not necessarily true, because basically half of the Russian energy sector is a domestic market, another half goes for exporting, approximately, right? So whenever there is talks about Russian energy sector being crushed due to sanctions and stuff, everyone should keep in mind that half is inside the Russian market anyways, right? It's a Russian market. So you cannot deal with this with sanctions, right? Because it's a domestic market. Another half, yeah, you can harm this another half, but if together domestic market and their export is even now, despite all these sanctions, is just 1/5, then exports alone will account for half of this 1/5, right? So it's even less fundamental for the budget, but nevertheless, it is significant. Don't get me wrong, it is significant revenues for the budget, obviously, right? And therefore, I think probably will be interesting to go through some details, how much money budget received from this sector. So in May, Russia's oil and gas tax revenues, which accounts for 1/5 of the budget, increased by more than third, or 32.4%, to 678.9 billion rubles, or approximately $9.3 billion, according to Ministry of Finance. This is official data, by the way, from Finance Ministry. However, compared to April, revenues decreased by 20.7%. So in April, number was significantly high. This decrease is basically parallel to increase tax on Russian energy sector, as far as I can tell. But nevertheless, let's see what this media outlet is reporting. So the increase in revenues in May was driven by significant increase in Russian oil prices, including the elimination of discounts and the overall rise in global oil prices due to Iranian conflict. According to preliminary estimates, the tax-exempt price of Russian oil in May 2026 was approximately $95 per barrel, compared to $52 per barrel in May of last year, says Sergei Klisenko, managing director of NRA Ratings Service. According to Vladimir Yevstefeyev, head of their analytical department of Zenit Bank, the average price on Urals crude oil in May of this year was $88 per barrel, 51% higher than in May 2025. The physical volume of oil exports in May at 8.4 million tons was lower than their 9.4 million tons in May 2025. So we are exporting significantly less oil than in previous year. Decline in crude oil export volumes could be primarily due to logistical issues from sanctions against Russia's largest exporters, Rosneft and Lukoil. Although exceptions were made for third country importers this spring, and also this decrease could be related to drone attacks on Russia's port infrastructure and sanctions against shadow fleet tankers, notes Natalia Milchakova, a leading analyst at the Freedom Global. She estimates that oil export volumes in January-May of this year could have been around 2.5 million barrels per day, 2 or 3% lower than in the same period 2025. Their strong ruble also hinders revenue growth. A weaker ruble would have increased oil and the gas budget revenues. Moreover, on an annual basis, their potential loss could be as much as 2.5 trillion rubles. This is This information I think is also interesting. You know, dear friends, I have said many times before that strong ruble is not necessarily good news for Russian economy, Russian economy in large, which is still export oriented, no matter what, but still export oriented. So strong ruble is not really good news for export oriented companies, for federal budget, right? And this expert in the field also basically says the same, and the Russian budget is losing or might lose this year 2.5 trillion income in the budget because of this extremely, no, I will say, right, significantly strong ruble. Strong ruble is eating into some of exporters' additional profits, according to our estimates. 1% deviation in the dollar exchange rate from budgeted figures results in 110 billion ruble change in their state treasury balance. This year, the dollar exchange rate was set at 92 rubles in the budget law, but was later revised to 81.5 rubles. And in reality, right now, by the way, exchange rate is like 71, 72 rubles for a dollar. So budget is losing big. Budget is losing hundreds of billions, and towards the end of the year, budget will lose probably trillions because of this strong ruble. And I have no freaking idea why central bank, why finance ministry is still basically doing nothing to weaken the ruble a little bit. You might say they are keeping this strong ruble to deal with inflation, which is not necessarily their case difference, because we already had a ruble not that far in the past when it reached 100, 110 in exchange with the dollar, right? And all the companies all over the Russia, of course, use the opportunity and jack the prices as much as they could. And when ruble becomes stronger, and just recently it was like 70 rubles for a dollar, by the way, total disaster for economy. You think these companies bring down the prices? No, they didn't. They did not. They simply didn't. Some goods may fail in price, but most of the goods stay as they were price-wise. So inflation is not really the reason. Fear of high inflation is not really a reason, because after all, state institutions have enough power and tools in their hands to tell the companies, you speculate with the freaking prices, I'm going to fine you so much so that you will go freaking bankrupt. So don't mess around. You already jacked the prices, right? So be cool now, or else. State always can operate in a strict way when it's necessary, right? And sometimes it is necessary. And also, one should keep in mind, by the way, that Russian economy on Russian market, as it is the case all over the, maybe not all over the world, but in most of the developed countries, they are monopolies, unfortunately. They are monopolies, by the way. Monopolies, right? There is chains in every field, right? Chains in every field. There's freaking monopolies, and unfortunately, these monopolies are led by people that are basically oligarchs, right? And that means they are close to power, very close to power. And in some cases, I would not go into details, by the way, but I know at least several massive companies here in Russia that directly are linked or associated with the certain high-ranking officials. Yet again, I would not mention the names, but people know, man, what's up, right? So if they want to deal with inflation, they can always deal with inflation. That's what I want to say. And deficit of Russian budget, you know how much is approximately going to be deficit of Russian budget this year? Approximately 2.5 trillion rubles, amount that budget going to lose because of this very strong ruble. And I mean, why they are keeping this strong ruble? for PR purposes to brag about how strong Russian ruble is, or for some other reasons, I have no freaking idea. I just don't know. Makes no sense. Economically, financially, makes no sense, in my personal opinion. And it is good that expert is talking about how much budget gonna lose if ruble stays this strong. And so I think you got the picture, isn't it? Quite interesting statistics there. Quite interesting statistics. Unfortunately, we are facing crisis in terms of energy, not just on the domestic market, but Russian oil exports are also dropping. And according to experts, this might be due to sanctions on so-called Russian shadow fleet, or overall sanctions on the Russian Federation, plus possibly, let's use cautious language, possibly this is also due to this unending drone attacks, long-range attacks on the Russian energy sector. Correct? And on this topic, dear friends, on the topic of energy, I also want to share with you statements that Novak, Deputy Prime Minister, who is basically responsible for energy sector exactly, made, I believe, on the sidelines of St. Petersburg's International Economical Forum. Quite a few interesting statements from him, and let's go through some details there also. I think topic is important, isn't it? I mean, I think topic is really important, at least my opinion. So the current crisis in the global oil market is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened in the last century. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak told the reporters on sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economical Forum. He noted that the situation on the domestic fuel market remains stable. Okay. Well, I will doubt that. But that's what he says. That's what he says, that it's all stable. Yeah, okay. 70 regions are implementing some restrictions, but it's nothing to see there. Okay, by the way. With their prices at the petrol stations, and prices are increasing too, by the way. I mean, let's not forget that prices are increasing too on fuel. This guy, Alexander Novak, is saying that the situation on the domestic fuel market remains stable, with their prices at the petrol stations of vertically integrated companies and the most petrol stations growing within their inflation range. Okay, that's quite something. Anyways, I mean, clearly, I mean, I understand that politicians or officials quite often, maybe more often than not, are saying some stuff that may not necessarily be factually accurate, but probably they think this is the statements that will keep people happy or something like that, right? But informed part of society, of course, while reading this, they will say straight away, I mean, reaction will be as I had, right? Oh, really? It's all good then. Okay. The situation in energy markets. Let's see some key statements from him. The global market has not yet fully left the effects of the energy crisis due to Middle Eastern conflict, as it is running on the fuel reserves due to remaining stockpiles, due to the fact that the market was previously in surplus. It has not fully felt their potential consequences for another 3 months. Physical oil shortage could occur this year if the Middle East crisis persists, as oil production in the Persian Gulf countries will not increase. If there are conflict drags on, production in the Persian Gulf continues will not increase. Of course, there will be shortage in a few months. Around 12 million barrels of oil per day are not entering the global market, according to him. This large shortage, it is already on the market, this large shortage, since around 12 million barrels of oil aren't are not being produced every day. The government will closely monitor the situation on the fuel market. The government, together with the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service and the Ministry of Energy, will closely monitor this. He said the current crisis in the global oil market is unprecedented. Certainly, given what's happening in the global market, we see that this is truly an unprecedented crisis. This has never happened before, not even in the 20th century. Novak is saying, okay, we might agree with some stuff that he says, we might disagree, but at least he's giving us some stats. 12 million barrels of oil shortage on daily basis, by the way. That's significant, obviously, due to US-Israeli war on Iran and partial isolation of the Middle East from global economy. And that's exactly what Western ruling class wanted, isolation of that region, especially energy sector of that region from the global economy. But that's a whole different story. Also, Russian official Novak went to say that Russia is maximizing their utilization of its oil export infrastructure. Oil production will increase in the future and return to previous levels. In the future, yes, sometime in the future, anything might happen, of course. We are naturally maximizing the utilization of our export infrastructure as refineries reach operational mode. Production will increase and return to previous levels. Number of Russian oil refineries are currently undergoing unscheduled maintenance. You know what happened with those oil refineries, isn't it? They were attacked by NATO member states while hiding behind the Kiev regime. That's what happened. Russia's oil production volume is currently lower than it was at the beginning of 2026. Currently, production is indeed somewhat lower than at the beginning of this year. This is quote from his statement. And when it comes to situations on the gas stations, that's what he says. The situation in the domestic fuel market remains stable. Situation is currently stable, and the prices at vertically integrated companies and the most gas stations are rising at the rate of no higher than inflation. Therefore, the government, along with the federal center and the Ministry of Energy, will closely monitor this. I don't think situation is stable, but anyways, that's their assumption. And he was asked also about possibility of diesel export to be banned. The Russian government may impose ban on diesel fuel exports for manufacturers if necessary. Anything is possible, and such decision may be made as needed. Currently, there is no such need. Well, today is the 4th of May, right? Let's come back to this topic on 10th of May, in a week's time. I think there is a high probability that by then, by 10th, 11th of May, there will be ban imposed on export of diesel too, because already in number of regions of the Russian Federation, mostly European regions, there are some restrictions, as I already mentioned, on fuel at the gas stations, right? And that includes diesel too. And let's not forget, by the way, most of Russian citizens are living in the European part of the country. Russia might be huge, massive, and it is, right? Biggest country in this world, but east of Ural Mountains, population is nowhere near, density of the population is nowhere near as it is in the European part. So, of course, crisis in European part, energy crisis in European part is something that definitely will need to be addressed. Publicly, they might say whatever they want. It's all according to plans. The situation is stable, blah, blah, blah. But they have to do something about the situation. They have to. And on the topic of global energy shortages, Novak also gave us hint that due to reserves, right, strategical reserves of different countries, there is actual hard hit on energy sectors will be felt globally in a couple of months' time when reserves will decrease. The strategical reserves will decrease all over the world towards the critical levels, and their processes are underway. Clearly, processes are underway because, well, one of the countries that have a massive or used to have a massive strategical reserves of oil is US. China might be bigger in this regard than US, but US definitely was on top there. And you can see headline difference there from Financial Times. Donald Trump's Iran war drains U.S. oil stocks to lowest levels since 2004. Oil and petroleum products reserves in the U.S. have fallen to their lowest level in 2 decades due to a conflict with Iran, writes the Financial Times. Last week, total reserves fell by 10.6 million barrels to 1.57 billion barrels, the lowest level since 2004. And you can count difference. You can counter this number not gonna increase. This number is not gonna increase much. They're gonna be constant decline. And you might say, well, but how? US produces more oil than it consumes. This is not true. You've been lied. Everybody who says that US is producing more oil than it consumes is misled. US does not produce more than it consumes. US consumes 20 million barrel plus every single day. 20 million barrel plus every day, by the way. US produces about 16 million barrels. About 16 million barrels. So from where this another 4 or 5 million barrel is coming from? That's one key point. And another is that, well, US energy companies, as any, and most of them are multinational corporations actually, as any multinational corporation, they are focused on what? On profit. So if they can sell the oil in Asia, for example, with increased price, of course they will do it, man. Until Washington will prohibit exports, these energy companies will sell gasoline and diesel to any buyer that will pay more, right? And that's how this decrease, this further decrease in strategical reserves is absolutely inevitable. In US and elsewhere too. And probably closer to autumn, mid-autumn maybe, I guess world will begin seeing this first big waves of energy crisis that was basically created by Western ruling class and their puppet regimes with this war that they launched against Iran and their attempt to isolate Middle East. But that's, I will get to that point of Middle East in a few minutes time, of course. But until now, this is the first half of the update, and I hope this first part of the live stream, this news update, was interesting enough, dear friends. Before I continue, let me just remind you, if I may, that this media project is completely subscriber funded and exists only as long as I have your support, community supporter. And if you like my work, if you want and can support me to maintain this project, to keep this project alive, and to stay full-time in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support. I mean, you can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal platform. A link is under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. Links also are under this video in the description box, will be in the pinned comment on YouTube. And in order this project to be in a safe place, dear friends, as I have said many times before, we need our communities on Patreon and Boosty to double. On Patreon right now, it's only 135 of us, one more member left the other day, and Yeah, it's yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, we need to double our community on Patreon and Boosty in order to be in a safe place. And maybe one day, dear friends, I will have opportunity to build a studio, right, proper studio, and I don't know, make more higher quality content with the better equipment and stuff. That's a dream of mine, but I don't know. Maybe I will get there someday. Also, dear friends, you can use Boosty platform. You can use Boosty platform for donations. And right now, I noticed on the phone there was donation on a Boosty during this stream, dear friends. And let me make a screenshot of this donation. I want to highlight this. Um, so it works, man. Boosty works. If you want to donate, you can use a super chat. You can you can use a PayPal. You can use a Boosty for that. And during the live streams, of course, you can use a super chat feature. By the way, on Rumble, because my channel is monetized on that platform, so you can use super chat feature on Rumble, or you can buy gift. What that called, man? Premium subscription gift card, or you can buy premium subscription gift card, which is a $5 donation basically. So there is certain means, right? Certain ways how this project can be supported. Right now, I noticed there was a super chat from Scooby on Rumble. I will react on that too, dear friends, and then I will continue. There are a lot of more news. Don't go anywhere, by the way. More news is coming. More news is coming, and first, let me highlight this donation that this project received right now during the stream. It takes a second only. I need these little breaks, by the way, in middle of the stream to relax a bit, because it might look so easy, right? To go for a 1 hour, 2 hour stream, right? It might look easy, but sometimes it's quite overwhelming, really. And that's how I come up with this idea to make little breaks in the middle of the program, talk about some other stuff, so that I will reload, right, my brains to continue with the news. So this is the super chat, dear friends. Marina, thank you very much for your donation on the Boosty. It's a $20 donation, dear friends. Almost 400 or almost 1,400 rubles. It's a $20 donation. So thank you very much, Marin, for your donation. And Marin is commenting, I hope your channel keeps going. You are doing a great job. Hello from Canada. Thank you very much for your kind words, Marin, and for your support. Truly appreciate. Thank you. Thank you very much. And dear friends, also yesterday, during the live stream, I believe during the live stream, there was a donation that Anna noticed, and there was donation through PayPal, by the way, and PayPal is Anna's PayPal, my wife's PayPal that I'm using, and she noticed this donation after the stream, right? I was after stream was finished, so I could not highlight it yesterday, but I will today. Andrzej, thank you very much for your very generous donation yesterday through PayPal. Andrzej donated $100, by the way. I mean, I cannot remember last time when this project received $100 donation. honestly. So, Anjay, thank you very much for your very generous donation yesterday. And Anjay commented, Russia appears very weaker defense, even very important events is not existing. Anjay is commenting on a situation that occurred in Leningrad region yesterday, in St. Petersburg city. And well, unfortunately, some drones did manage to bypass air defense systems and struck Leningrad, both Leningrad region itself and also St. Petersburg city, certain areas in a city. Air defenses are there, they are working, they are active, but yet again, unfortunately, even best air defense forces in the world that Russia has are unable to neutralize all the incoming targets 100% always. Even Israel, tiny Israel, is struggling to defend itself, right? Its airspace from even basic rockets and the drones. And Israel is just like one district of Moscow. I don't know, maybe a little bigger than Moscow district, but it's tiny, isn't it? Russia is huge, and also because I think because NATO member states are actively used, their airspace actively used for attacks on Russian Federation. Maybe that caught Russian side a little bit off guard. Maybe they didn't expect that NATO countries will actually authorize attacks on Russia from their territories during the opening days of St. Petersburg's Economical Forum. Either way, I know that optics are bad. I understand that perfectly well, Anjay. I know what you are talking about. And as I already said, man, only way we can actually deal with the situation is to restore the deterrent with the NATO member states, because it's NATO member states that are providing, right, and these drones are missiles to Kiev regime, and intelligence, satellite intelligence, flight path targeting data, everything is done by NATO member states, right? Basically, Kiev regime's militaries are just basically maybe pushing the button. That's all that they are involved. Or maybe they are assembling some drones on the spot, on the launch point, but most is done by NATO member states. And until we will restore deterrent with NATO, with collective West, I'm afraid we will continue to deal with this constant threat of long-range attacks on Russian Federation, and these launches of drones, these incoming targets will only increase in numbers. It's already happening. There is dramatic increase in incoming drones, right? I remember a few days ago there was reports that in 24-hour period alone, Russian air defense systems intercepted more than 1,000 drones. You can imagine how difficult and also how costly it is to intercept 700, 800, 900 drones, 1,000 drones, and this number will only continue to rise if we are not restoring deterrent. One don't have to be genius necessarily to understand this, right? If Western elites are demonstrating anything, they are demonstrating willingness to go all the way because they feel like they have a free ride, right? That they can do anything with impunity. So thank you very much once again, Anjay, for a very generous donation yesterday through PayPal. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much. And also yesterday, dear friends, there was a $10 donation from Naftuli, also through PayPal. Naftuli, thank you very much for your yesterday's donation, if you're watching right now. And Naftuli is commented supporting you from Sacramento, California. Long live Mother Russia. Thank you very much, Naftuli. Thank you very much for your kind words and for your support. Thank you. And dear friends, also let me highlight super chat from Scooby. So this is a super chat from Scooby right now. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat on Rumble and their $2 donation. And Scooby is commenting, if US keeps Gulf in turmoil and the EU actually does try to decouple by 2027, there will be a relatively inelastic demand for Russian oil, and the primary resources don't fall for a resource curse with a ruble. I mean, when it comes to, I think Russian economical bloc, they know what is going to happen. They are quite good, right? After all, they did manage to keep economy safe enough, right, or strong enough to withstand this enormous pressure that is coming from the collective West. And when it comes to energy sector itself, well, if Russian economical bloc is focused on anything, they are focused on further transformation of Russian economy, so that energy sector will take lesser and lesser stand when it comes to, for example, income of Russian federal budget. Already now, oil exports from Russia, for example, entire energy sector of Russia brings in maximum like 20-25%, right? As finance ministry is saying. Half of it is domestic market, so only half of that 25% is export, energy export, which is not that big if you think about it, right? It's not really that big of a number. And I think focus of Russian economical bloc will be to further diversify economy and reach the point when mechanical industry, agricultural sector, IT sector will bring in more, and small and medium business, by the way, most importantly, small and medium business. That's where we have to be focused on, right? I think soon these sectors will be major ones, right? And the relevance of energy sector will further decrease, although it will always be significant, of course, right? And when it comes to ruble, that's I already spoke so much about ruble. I don't really have much to add to it. I don't know, man. Federal budget might lose 2.5 trillion rubles income because of this enormous strength of the ruble currently. After all, China was keeping its yuan weak for decades and continues to do so for a reason, right? Because Chinese economy is also export oriented. And one of the issues that West always had with China was exactly that China is intentionally keeps weak its domestic currency. So yeah, we will see what's going to happen. Thank you very much, Scooby, for sharing your opinion and for your super chat and the donation on Rumble. And dear friends, I think I had enough break. Break. I'm ready to continue with the news now. And so, okay, let's go with some other news. And I mean, so much is happening, man. So much is happening. As I already mentioned, you friends, yesterday was the first day of St. Petersburg's International Economical Forum, in which, according to different reports, about, many delegations, delegations from 130 countries approximately going to participate. Also, there are a lot of people from all over the world there, and for whatever reason, here in Russia, there is especially from MSM, by the way, there is a high interest towards presence of Americans in this forum, right? Participation of Americans in this forum, and they are different Americans, isn't it? They are different Americans, by the way. They are ones that are always welcome here in Russia. Ones that prove themselves to not to be Russia haters, at least, right? And I think Candice Owens, American conservative commentator, is definitely one of those people. I don't think she is a Russia hater. I don't think she hates people generally, right? Speaking. You might agree with some of her points. You might disagree with some of her points, but she's big. She's very big in America, and she has tremendous following, tremendous support from her community. She's very successful as a commentator, as a OG, I will say, in this field, one of the OGs in this field of news and political commentary, and she is participating in St. Petersburg's economical forum, and she's welcome, man. I mean, I have no issue with her. Good for her. She's here in Russia with her family, and looks like she's impressed. She's impressed her. I'm gonna give you a little video of her statements on the sidelines of St. Petersburg's economical forum. I think she is a nice person. I don't know. I don't know her personally, obviously, but I think she is a nice person.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is my first time in Russia, and it has been absolutely beautiful, wonderful, defied all of my expectations. And to be able to, in addition to that, while I'm here visiting with our children, my husband and children, to be able to sit on such an impactful panel and discuss what is most important to me, family, is truly an honor. So thank you so much. My main conclusion would be that we are grappling with the same issues, West and East, and I think something that we hit upon today was just the media messaging and constantly trying to make this division between what's going on in Russia, what's going on in America, that there are no similarities. My entire trip has revealed to me just how similar we are, and our motivation, both as a faithful society, putting God first, but family, understanding that family encourages us in a positive way. It has just been a tremendously encouraging trip, and I can't wait to go back onto my podcast and to be able to share that with the American people as well.
I mean, she looks, really like happy that she's here. I mean, she was first time in Russia now, and looks like she was positively impressed, right? Which is good, by the way. If you ask me, should you travel to Russia, would you like it? I will say yes, of course, man. Just come to Russia, you're gonna like it. As long as you are behaving respectfully, you being good and nice to others, you're gonna be treated absolutely nicely. You're gonna be welcomed, right? You have seen numerous my walk and talk videos, isn't it? I'm walking around the streets, talking in English. Never ever anybody had any issues with that, right? So that says something, isn't it? So it's good that looks like Candice Owens and probably her family members were positively impressed with what they are seeing here in Russia. Great. I like that. And and she's gonna have a hard time, by the way. She's already been attacked in US by all sorts of idiots for visiting Russian Federation because, as I said, man, Russia haters are real, man. They exist. They hate everyone and everything Russian, right? And it's not just Candice Owens. I saw a report this morning. I read a little article which says that among other people from America, there is a Scott Ritter also that is participating. In in work of St. Petersburg's International Economical Forum. Probably he will make some speeches there, interact with other experts in field, or maybe some other active commentators from America that we are familiar through alternative media also going to be there. That's good. that's all good, I think. That's a positive stuff. But for whatever reason, Russian media is more focused or specifically focused on presence of American official delegation, right? U.S. official delegation, which is happening first time since at least 2022, or maybe longer than that, right? Yesterday, one of the Telegram channels dropped short video from Russian channel one, and the journalist was so freaking happy, or it looked like, right? That I mean, American delegation, first time this and that, these Americans. Come on, man. Come on, why you care? Why we are allowing any representatives of this terrorist regime in US to enter Russian Federation? Ordinary citizens should be welcomed. Experts should be welcomed that are not known to be xenophobes and racists and scumbags. But officials from US, no, man, they should not be here. And it's not just MSM, Russian MSM, that just went way too far, celebrating sort of presence of this American delegation, official delegation. But Maria Zakharova also spoke about this topic. I mentioned yesterday that she said that presence of American delegation indicates that we are now moving towards the track of civilized relationships or communication, which is definitely not the true, because it's a very same US ruling regime, US ruling class that is directly involved in mass killing of the Russian citizens. Very same regime, representatives of which have been celebrated in St. Petersburg, right, by some officials and some MSM representatives, which is a shame, by the way, ridiculous. It's shamefully ridiculous, right? And reaction of society, significant portion of society was quite critical on this very strange approach that Ida Zakharova or Russian MSM demonstrated in regards to this American delegation. And Zakharova then went to kind of explain herself why it is beneficial that US official representatives are participating in a SPIFR. Let me give you what she says about it. The visit of US representatives to the St. Petersburg's International Economic Forum gives Washington the opportunity to convey its position to a wider audience. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said in an interview with RIA Novosti, and unfortunately, I have to disagree with Maria Zakharova once again, because representatives of US regime are managing to convey their takes and the positions to wider community on daily basis, right? And as example, look what Marco Rubio, US State Department head, and simultaneously National Security Advisor of the US President Donald Trump. That means one of the most powerful US officials are saying US is working on new sanctions against Russia. Okay. Convenient enough, right? Direct enough, convenient enough for everyone understood where US stands, where US regime stands, right? The White House officer of legal counsel of working interagency with Senator Lindsey Graham's office on the bill's details, providing feedback on those provisions that would be acceptable to us. The president has outlined and agreed to this, Rubio said at the Senate hearing yesterday. The Secretary of State clarified that their sanctions bill is currently being finalized. They are finalizing bills soon, they're going to implement that bill, I guess, right? Sanctions bill against Russia. That's where they stand. But if you think this is not enough, Well, okay. Also, yesterday, Rubio went to say that U.S. can't be considered a neutral mediator in terms of in regards to Ukrainian crisis, in regards to this proxy war that West is against Russia, and he's correct. No one should consider U.S. to be mediator, and of course, no one should ever consider U.S. to be neutral, right? Let me give you a short video of this statement. Is this not convenient enough? Do we really need a U.S. delegation on the sidelines of St. Petersburg's economical forum to hear this kind of stuff? Maybe Rubio's statements and statements of other U.S. officials are quite enough, really? That's the video, by the way.
Clear, we are not, to be fair and to be frank, we are not impartial mediators in that war. Okay, we don't provide weapons to Russia. We only provide weapons to Ukraine. We don't impose sanctions on Ukraine. We only impose sanctions on Russia. So we have clearly taken a side. We continue to sell weapons to Ukraine, by the way, through the Pearl program, unimpeded by what's happened in the Middle East or anywhere else.
So is that clear enough? I mean, of course, no one gonna invite me in St. Petersburg's economical forum, but if I was there and if I see Maria Zakharova making these statements, I would ask, do you ever pay any attention what American officials are saying? Do we necessarily need these criminals, representatives of this terrorist genocidal regime of US to be here in St. Petersburg? Really? No, we don't. We don't, right? And this attitude, this sickening attitude towards Western elites, man, is truly something extraordinary, man. This is, I don't know, embarrassing. They all should be embarrassed. All these so-called elites of the Russia that are seeking acknowledgement from their Western elites, man. I mean, what the hell is wrong with them, man? What the hell? So yeah, that's I think that's quite enough, isn't it? To understand where US stands. And if you say, well, that's not enough, then okay. Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, was in Kiev yesterday, right? And maybe he's still there. I don't really care. Unfortunately, we did not. Russia did not take no action to eliminate this terrorist while he was in Kiev, or Zelensky for that matter. But that's a whole different story. And while talking to so-called journalists together with Zelensky, Rutte went to defend US and highlight how much US is involved in this war against Russian people and the Russian Federation. Maybe Zakharova will pay a little more attention, right, to all these statements, so that she will never ever say that anybody needs there is benefits from presence of American representatives of this genocidal regime from US in St. Petersburg, because people will understand better. What we're gonna understand, man? We know everything we need to know already, right? Whole world knows what US ruling class and Western ruling class is. Unbelievable, man. English is not my first language, dear friends. I mean, it's hard to explain what I want to say quite often, and that's unfortunate. But I'm gonna give you a video. At least I'm gonna give you a video of Rutte too. He is quite direct here.
Can I defend the US here? Because the United States, I believe, is doing what it can in terms of delivering Pack 3 and Pack 2 Patriot missiles to Ukraine. I really believe that, based on all the evidence I have. Whatever they can supply, they do. The money is there. So I go with my team cap in hand amongst European and Canadian allies to get the money. We are successful at that. I would love to see a little bit more of a better burden sharing. It is a couple of allies doing the heavy lifting, but okay, that's my problem. For Ukraine, it is important that the money is there for the interceptors to get them from the United States. The United States keeps on providing them. The US is also still providing all the critical intelligence to Ukraine. So I really want to defend the US here. The problem, of course, here, as the President was saying, is the production rate. So the President, I know myself, we are also in contact with the manufacturers of this equipment. I know the American President is. Not only because of Ukraine, but more generally in NATO, we need to produce more in terms of defense industrial output. The President has been forcing the American companies to quadruple their overall, not only Patriot interceptors, but overall quadruple the defense industrial output. And I met one of these CEOs after they had a meeting in the White House. He was still trembling. So I think the President had been quite forceful there. And I know this President is quite forceful and also discussing with industry. So I think we are all doing what we can. In the meantime, the good news is that this flow of interceptors from the US, despite the war in the Middle East, is continuing. But of course, what we have to make sure is that also longer term, Ukraine has what it needs now and in the middle and longer term, also with a view of next winter, to defend yourself.
So it's quite clear, isn't it, where US stands under the current ruling class, no matter it's a Democrat administration or Republican administration. Everything is clear for everybody, really, for everybody. And I understand why many people express critical take when they see this sort of celebratory attitude of some officials and also some MSM in regards to presence of this official US delegation. Come on, man, what are we doing really? And I truly don't understand what Zakharova means, that a visit of US representatives to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum gives Washington the opportunity to convey its position to wider audience. Does it look like they have any issues with sharing their opinion with anybody or the world? Maybe it's too much of US in this world. Maybe the world needs less US, right? Not more. But either way, I mean, Trump alone is doing way too much, right? To convey to whole world audience where they stand. Nothing to be said about all the others. Nevertheless, as I said, man, there is difference, isn't it? There is regime in US, ruling class, and its representatives, and there are Americans, right? No issues with Americans, by the way. And I'm happy that Candace Owens and Scott Ritter and hopefully many other good Americans are coming to Russia, including in this forum, participating in work of this forum, and good, man. That's all good. I have an issue with their attitude that I see here among certain class of people towards these Western elites, man, and that makes me question where their heart is, right, of those people, man, or where their mind is. But anyways. When it comes to guests, by the way, when it comes to guests to St. Petersburg's Economical Forum, I have to say, man, Alex Christoforou from Iran was in Moscow for 2 weeks, right? Did they ask Alex Christoforou to participate? Is he not big enough in alternative, as a representative of alternative media? He's one of the leading figures in alternative media, right? And Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercouris, they are OGs too, by the way, in this field. So why Alex Christoforou is in Belgrade now, not in St. Petersburg? I would ask question. You know, Tate brothers are in Moscow. Tate brothers gonna probably participate in St. Petersburg's Economical Forum. I don't give a damn about Tate brothers. I never see them to be serious people. Honestly, I never see them to be serious people. Maybe they're actually being prosecuted for some fake charges and stuff like that, either in Romania or in UK, by the way. Things happen. And they're definitely Western ruling class or Western regimes cannot be trusted, obviously, but nevertheless, I never take either of these Tate brothers seriously as a serious grown-up people or figures from alternative media, at least, right? While there are many other personalities in alternative media that are actually not Russophobes, actually doing good job for a community, and they've been ignored. What the hell, man? Who is the organizer of this event, really? Who is the freaking organizer? And what kind of message they want to send to the rest of the world? Freaking imbeciles, man. Freaking imbeciles. That's what I think about very many officials here in Russia and very many idiots that are from their inner circle. Let's be clear on that too, right? Freaking imbeciles, man. Умственно отсталые мрази, блядь. Anyways, let's continue. And Maria Zakharova again stated she had some polemic, by the way, with the BBC so-called journalist here in Russia. She was upset this time around, understandably so, that BBC and a number of Western so-called media outlets refused to go through Starobelsk when the regime, with the assistance of NATO member states, targeted the college and killed their young people, right, students of the college, 21 of them, while injuring dozens and dozens. And Maria Zakharova was not happy with this unprofessional attitude of BBC and its journalists, and with many others. And she made a comment on this matter that RIA Novosti is reporting, that Zakharova promised to watch how the BBC will cover the crimes of the Ukrainian armed forces. So Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova promised to review how the BBC, which previously refused to visit their site of the Ukrainian armed forces terrorist attack in Starobelsk, will cover the crimes of the Kyiv regime in their future. Earlier, RIA Novosti correspondent reported that BBC journalist Steve Rosenberg, MI6 asset, by the way, this bitch is not a journalist. This filth is not a journalist. Let's be clear on that. This is MI6 asset. Period. It's MI6 freaking asset, man. Why this bitch is allowed to be in Russia to begin with? Why this filth, Steve Rosenberg, is allowed to be in Russia? That's the question I have, right? To Maria Zakharova. Why they are giving accreditation to BBC, not just to Steve Rosenberg, MI6 asset, but to BBC itself? Is there any Russian media outlet allowed in UK? No, man. They all are banned. So why BBC is allowed to have a registration and their accreditation here in Russia? Or CNN, for that matter, or any other Western MSM, man? Why those propaganda instruments, tools of the Western elites, of enemies of Russia, are allowed to operate here? It's a legit question, isn't it? And answer is very, very unpleasant, by the way. I know the answer, I think, and it still goes back to this unhealthy fixation of a number of representatives of Russian ruling class on Western elites. They truly are fixated on Western elites, man. They want to approve, they are seeking approval of the Western elites. They want to convince everybody that or especially Westerners, that they are just like them, right? And that's the reason why BBC is still operating here. That's why CNN and all the other propaganda outlets, propaganda tools of our enemies are operating here, which is truly not healthy, man. This is sickening. Sickening. Maria Zakharova shouldn't ask questions to Steve Rosenberg, because Steve Rosenberg should not be here to begin with. Maria Zakharova should ask her questions to her boss, Lavrov, why this freaking BBC is even allowed to operate here. I mean, as simple as that, really. But anyways, earlier, University correspondent reported that BBC journalist Steve Rosenberg, after the remarks about Zakharova, promised to cover the terrorist attack by the Ukrainian forces in Yanakevo, in the Donetsk People's Republic, when, yesterday, by the way, bus was targeted. I reported about it yesterday. Kiev regime, with the assistance of NATO member states, targeted their bus, civilians in bus. It was a bus that was moving from Moscow, I believe, to Crimea, and it was targeted, struck by drone, and 8 people were killed, and 10 people at least were injured as a result of this terrorist attack on civilians, right? And this MI6 asset, Rosenberger, allegedly promised that they will cover this terrorist attack in Yanakevo. I mean, what are we doing, honestly, man? We are begging these Western propaganda outlets to do journalistic work, to actually do journalistic work. They're not going to do it, man. They are no journalists. There is not a single decent human being and journalist in a Western MSM, not a single one. Let's be clear on that. And let's not mess around, man. As if we are fucking idiots and don't know what's up. We know what's up. So I'm telling you, man, we have to, I don't have no freaking fixation of Western elites. I don't want to be acknowledged by anybody. And I don't want ever to stand next to Western so-called elites, because they are filth, right? It's disgusting. It's disgusting, man. I wouldn't stand next to them, for God's sake, man. That's how disgusting they are. These royalties in Europe and these so-called aristocracies and these inbreed motherfucking animals, man, that call the European aristocracy and elites, man, are disgusting crap. And so I definitely have no freaking fixation on anything, but clearly some people, influential people in the Russian ruling class, as it was happening historically, man, at least since Peter the Great, they are fucking fixated on these Western elites, man. They want their approval. They seek their approval. They want to prove they are like them, and they are acting more and more crazy, man. Therefore, right, more and more crazy, instead of helping. I mean, you might say, well, they want BBC and all the others to be, all the other Western propaganda outlets to be in Russian territory too, so that Western audience will have some connection and will know what's going on in Russia. And this is not true, by the way. They are not reporting the truth, right? These Western so-called journalists, man, from MSM. They are not about truth. They are about propaganda. So their presence on Russian territory is only harmful to Russia. Only harmful to Russia. You know how Western MSM reported about Starobelsk, that it was a Moscow's claim that civilians were killed there, students. They were in the reporting putting doubts, right? That it's just Moscow's claim, don't take it seriously. It's just, that's what Moscow says. You think we actually need that kind of elements on the Russian territory as a journalist? No, we don't. No, we don't. And if Russian leadership, let's say, was thinking about reaching out to world community, right? If they actually want to reach out to world community, including in the Western world, then for God's sake, I have this question. Why does Russia still lack widely known and truly adequate, accessible infrastructure to support independent authors and the media projects working among other directions also for a foreign audience in foreign languages, including in this field of news and politics segment? How come here in Russia there is no freaking infrastructure widely known to everybody, all the people that are working in this field? Why there is no infrastructure, known and adequate infrastructure to support independent creators? Why? There are many creators, by the way. Some creators are working in the field of travel. Some creators are working in foreign languages, by the way. So they are reaching out foreign audiences, right? There should be infrastructure to support domestic creators that are oriented on domestic, right? Audience, and also on a foreign audience. And there are channels, by the way. I know personally dozens of channels, mostly small ones, right, that are working in field of travel, in field of food, by the way. You know, there are food bloggers, right, also, and some are very popular, man. And also there is very few, but still there is channels like mine, right, also small, but nevertheless channels that are working in the news and politics in a foreign language. I happen to have programs in English. There might be other channels that are working in French, with the French language or Spanish language. It's all good, right? If I knew French, I would also work with French language, but I don't know, unfortunately, by the way. I know 4 languages, more or less, okay. I should know 8. I would love to know 8. I just don't. And so, if Russian leadership is serious about reaching out world, why there is no infrastructure in the place to support independent creators? I have 8 million views on my YouTube channel alone, right? I know it's nothing extraordinary. 8 million views. It's a little number, especially for big channels. They make 8 million in a like month's time, right? Or 2 months time, maybe with one video even. So, but I'm a small channel. I have 8 million views. So 8 million times I did manage to reach out to people out there, right? In the world. And how come, by the way, that this project is still in survival mode, man? There is no freaking infrastructure, no fund that I can go and tell them, you know what, I have this little projector, and I would love to have opportunity to build a proper freaking studio, to have a proper equipment, so that every now and then I'm not gonna experience some technical issues and stuff. So, is there any opportunity to have a grant, right? But I can nowhere to go, man. There is nothing. Some might say that, well, there is some funds, and they are working. Yeah, maybe there are some funds for kids of bureaucrats or the closed ones, right? But when it comes to ordinary people, man, there is nothing. There is nothing, right? So, what's up, man? It's upsetting, man. It's heartbreaking. I mean, so many stuff is wrong. So many stuff is done wrongly, or is not done at all, that it's I don't know, man. So if they want actually to reach out the world, support. Okay, they may not, but you know what? Why should not they create a fund or encourage businesses to create a fund and support independent creators, by the way. Yeah, I may not be freaking Putin supporter. I'm not, right? And so what? I'm pro-Russian, right? That's what is key here. I'm one that shares with the audience out there in the world pro-Russian views as I see it. And news from Russia, from Russian media outlets, by the way. This RIA Novosti and this Vzglyad newspaper and this TASS news agency and Kommersant and I don't know what else I use, RT and all the rest, man. These are Russian media outlets, right? But yeah, man. That's where we are. That's where we are. They are keeping freaking BBC, and they think BBC will help them reach out the world, right? Goodness me, man. Yeah, BBC will help you, and CNN and Fox News, right? These freaking Russia haters, man. And propagandists, they're freaking animals. Yeah, keep them around for sure. Instead of revoking their accreditation immediately and send them into their countries, man. Right? Embarrassing. This is just embarrassing, man. I'm telling you, there is too many freaking imbeciles out there among influential people, among elites here in Russia, by the way, right? RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting, and this is quite interesting. I want to share with you this information because it's quite interesting. While on one side, we are seeing this very unhealthy attitude of a number of representatives, let's say, of Russian elites towards the Western elites, right? Western ruling class. There is another point of view too, and it's not just me that despise Western elites, by the way. I'm telling you, I think Western ruling class, Western aristocracies, they are disgusting, literally, right? But there are some other people too that probably have somewhat similar take. Maybe they are not as far advanced in their opinion about Western elites as I am, but nevertheless, Oreshkin, for example, has said that called basically for a move away from our defense model in relations with the West, which is good call, man, good call. And this guy, Oreshkin, by some is considered to be possibly future Russian president, man. I don't know anything about this person. I may have read some stuff about him, okay, but I don't really know much. He is a high-ranking official right now in the president's administration, and if he is actually considered by ruling class here in Russia to be one of the candidates who might replace Putin, then if he has such a stance, that's good, man. That's good. I like that. Let me give you details. Russia needs to move away from a defensive model in its relations with the Western countries. The older world will not return, said Maxim Oreshkin, deputy chief of staff of the presidential executive office. And he said that while speaking at the season of the St. Petersburg International Economical Forum, and well, I agree with him 100%. But I mean, you see, there are people in the Russian leadership among high-ranking officials with whom I can agree because they are correct, 100% correct, right? And we should question how come that Russia was in this defensive mode in regards to Western elites, and what kind of role in that played this sickening, non-healthy attitude of some representatives of Russian elites towards their Western ruling class, when they are desperately seeking to be acknowledged and allowed into this club of Western, I don't know, elites, man. Why would anybody want to be part of Epstein class? I don't know. That's sickening, sickening. But there are people that wants to be part of that Epstein class, man. They are. And it is good to know that in administration of Russian president, there are people who are on the right positions. Let me give you a quote. We need to move away from a poorly defensive model. In fact, by and large, we've already moved away from that. We need to move further and further away. The key point is to not wait for the old ways to return. He responded to the question of whether it's time to shift their paradigm of responses to the Western sanctions, moving away from a reactive model toward a proactive one. And yes, I mean, he's correct that we have to move. We just have to stay away from Western ruling class, man. We just have to. We have to ignore them. And if we can, and I believe we can, we have to restore the deterrent. That's how it is. Doors should be open for ordinary people from the Western countries to communicate with Russian citizens, to come to Russia whenever they want to. Maybe they want to migrate and all that kind of stuff. Doors should be open. But when it comes to Western ruling class, let's stay away from those freaking, genocidal maniacs. Just let's stay away, man, and let's restore the deterrent until it's not too late, man. So, good, man. When I see this statement, I was like a little happy, man, because really, man, too many so-called officials are demonstrating very strange attitude, man, towards Western ruling class, man, and that's not good. That's not good, man. They should understand who is our enemy, right? And our enemy, existential threat to Russian people, to Russian Federation, is a Western ruling class, first and foremost, right? Western ruling class and corrupt officials here in Russia. Corruption and corrupt officials. And I'm all in support of extermination of all of them. Corrupt officials and the Western ruling class. And I would love to see they being exterminated, but yeah, maybe in other life. And well, I mean, how long is this update, man? Goodness me. And when I say Western ruling class is a threat, by the way, I mean that, right? I am correct, because look, this news, for example, British Army has deployed Challenger 2 tanks to the borders of Russia to participate in NATO Spring Storm exercises in Estonia, according to Military Watch magazine. And of course, we don't give a damn about this garbage called Challenger 2, right? Truly garbage so-called tank, by the way. It's an embarrassment to real tanks, right? To call this garbage such a name. But nevertheless, British ruling class, with every opportunity, are demonstrating how much they want to harm Russia, to harm Russian people, to harm Russian, everything Russian, right? They are using any and every opportunity for that, and they are constantly escalating with Russia, constantly, and will continue to do so until they are able to kill Russian citizens with impunity. And unfortunately, Western ruling class, British ruling class, British secret services, British militaries are guilty of death of tens of thousands of Russian citizens. And they did it, as of now, practically with impunity. Yes, Russian militaries eliminated number of British officers, number of British intelligence assets, also a number of members of British Special Forces, be in SAS or Special Boat Service. But British ruling class in large pay no price for killing of the Russian citizens, and this is not okay. They all should pay price. All that are involved in these crimes against Russian people. British militaries, British intelligence, British ruling class, right? They all are guilty. And also, I mean, why should anybody be surprised that British ruling class is all about escalating with Russia when even Baltic Chihuahuas, by the way, are barking not just too loud, but are going absolutely crazy, right? While acting against Russia as if they are nuclear superpower and Russia is banana republic. And all this is happening because of this restraint policy that Russian President Putin is exercising for so long, and God knows why. So when it comes to Baltic Chihuahuas, Lithuania is negotiating deployment of nuclear weapons now on its territory. And this is serious, and probably at some point nukes gonna end up on Lithuanian territory, and that means Kaliningrad city itself, not just the region, but Kaliningrad city itself might be in a range of not just like nuclear strike with missile, but in a range of nuclear strike potentially by artillery. And you know, dear friends, during the Cold War, US and Soviet Union were working and even deployed artillery shells equipped with a nuclear device. It's real, man. There was even tests conducted when larger caliber artillery was firing nuclear munition. And Lithuania wants nuclear weapons to be deployed there. So you can imagine how big of a risk that is. And not just for Kaliningrad region, right? This is Lithuania. And look, this is Kaliningrad here. And eastwards, this is Belarus, right? This is Belarus, right on the border with Lithuania, and little further east, of course, Russian Federation. From Lithuania to, let's say, Moscow, hypersonic missile with equipped with a nuclear warhead will take, I don't know, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, probably. And it will hit Moscow. And 5 minutes is just a really, really small time to react. Really little time to react. So deployment of nuclear weapons into these Baltic NATO member states is extremely, extremely dangerous. And it's not just Lithuania that wants nuclear weapons on their territory. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, they are on the same page. Poland is on the same page. Polish officials publicly are saying that they not just want nuclear weapons to be deployed there, American or French or British, they don't give a damn. They want nukes to be there. They're publicly saying that when they will have opportunity, they will go nuclear for themselves, right? They will build nuclear weapons too. They are saying it publicly. This is stuff that cannot be ignored, right? And only way we can stop deployment of nuclear weapons and nuclear capable missiles, let's say, right on the border with the Russian Federation is if we are restoring deterrent with the NATO, with the collective West, and if we are doing this now, this summer, by the way. I don't think we will have more time. It's already very late. It's already very late, but if we did not restore deterrent with the collective West this summer, then it will just be too late, I'm afraid. That's how bad the situation is. And one might only hope, man, that after St. Petersburg's economical forum, Russian president will have some meeting with their intellectuals true intellectuals, by the way, true ones, right? True intellectuals. And hopefully he will well understood what's going on, and he will green light then Russian security and military services to restore deterrent with the collective West by any means necessary. And let's make no mistake, dear friends, if Russian security services and militaries are green lighted by Russian president to restore deterrent with the West, they will do it. They will do it. No one should have any doubts in the capabilities of Russian security services and militaries. They are extremely capable, probably most capable that ever existed, but they need a green light to act. In many cases, right? In many cases, they need green light to act. And hopefully Russian president will give them a green light this summer. Until it's too late, man. It's already late, but still something can be done. But if we miss this summer, then it's gonna be just too late. Meanwhile, I want to also share with you this information that top Zelensky's advisor threatened Belarusian president with their assassination. Yeah, that's the creatures that we are dealing with, by the way, either in Kiev right now or in the West when it comes to elites there, right? If Lukashenko wants to leave to see a retirement, he'd better keep quiet. Advisor of Zelensky is threatening, Mikhail Podolyak is threatening president of Belarus. I mean, that's how bad the situation is, man. I mean, who the hell is Zelensky? And then who the hell is his freaking advisor to threaten president of Belarus? Honestly, man. Can you imagine? I mean, situation is so freaking bad that this kind of nonsense is actually happening. You know? Why these mass murderers are even alive or right now? Why they have not been eliminated? Why leadership of this terrorist regime in Kiev is not eliminated? Why? Are we freaking suicidal? Why we are not eliminating these mass murderers? It's wrong, man. It's not normal. It's not okay. When mass murderers not just not being eliminated, but in certain cases, there was even engagement with them, right? Some negotiations and stuff. What the hell are we doing, man? What is wrong with us? Meanwhile, Russian militaries continue advance on the battlefield, dear friends, and we have reports that Guliai-Polskaya settlement in the Zaporozhye region was liberated by Russian forces, and this is good news, of course. Don't mix Guliai-Polye with Guliai-Polskaya, by the way. Guliai-Polye city was liberated quite some time ago now, but now we are talking about Guliai-Polskaya. This relatively, I mean, medium size, let's say, not big, not small, medium-sized village that you see right now on your screen. So this settlement is liberated, and Russian troops are getting closer and closer to a major stronghold of Kiev regime in the central part of Zaporozhye sector, which is Orekhov city, of course. Earlier, there was reports that maybe Russian troops already have established control over some southeastern parts of Orekhov, almost half of it. But I did not really see much of confirmations of these reports, so therefore I could not say anything on this matter. But what I have seen is confirmations of advance of Russian troops on eastern sectors of the Zaporozhye direction, and Russian troops are, as you can see, dear friends, are getting very, very close to Orekhov, and soon, once basically these couple of settlements, Novoselovka Yegorovka, Omelnik. Once these settlements are basically liberated, we might say that Orechov is in operational encirclement at that point. Let's see how the situation develops. It is good that Russian troops are advancing. By the way, Russian troops are advancing practically on daily basis, isn't it? I'm sharing with you information about this settlement being liberated and that settlement. When it comes to Zaporozhye region, unfortunately, on the western flank of this region, Kiev regime for 2 months now, if not more, was conducting these suicidal counteroffensives, and while sacrificing a lot of military personnel, Kiev regime allegedly did manage to restore control over the number of settlements in Primorsk, Grigorovka areas, Stepnogorsk areas, but seems like they ran out of steam. Seems like Kiev regime's forces did run out of steam while conducting these counteroffensives, suicidal counteroffensives in this direction, while Russian troops are non-stop advancing on the eastern flank of this sector. Soon Orechov gonna be in the headlines. Soon. What else do I have bookmarked, dear friends? House of Representatives in US approved restrictions on Trump's powers in the war with Iran. I don't know if this even means anything, and if White House or Trump cares that much that US House of Representatives passed a resolution limiting Trump's war powers. Trump himself commented on this, and he called the Republicans that supported, and all Democrats. There was 4 Republicans that supported this resolution, and Trump called all of them like traitors or something, isn't it? Unpatriots. Okay, I mean, if you disagree with Trump, you are not patriot then. I mean, this is such a stupid, such a low IQ level of argument, isn't it? And unfortunately, many people are actually on that low IQ level that are believing that if you dare to disagree with the regime, then you are somehow non-patriotic and you are traitor and you are freaking this and that and alien and should be exterminated and stuff like that, which is crazy, right? How can anybody, among so many decent Americans, by the way, that are critical of Trump's administration and were objectively critical of previous administration, how anybody can call them unpatriotic or the traitors? I mean, Scott Ritter was risking his life, man, while serving as a U.S. military in Marines. Colonel Douglas McGregor, by the way, I mean, he was risking his life while serving in U.S. military. Daniel Davis, Colonel Daniel Davis, he was risking his life. They are quite critical of certain policies of Washington and how they are either, or when it comes to U.S. lawmakers, I know Messi was critical. I know Ron Paul is critical, right, of these policies, war policies of the Trump. And some others, right? How they are unpatriotic or traitors, as they've been called, like that. What the hell, man? Right? Extremely low IQ level of attacks on opponents from White House and their diehard Trump supporters, man. Embarrassing, really. Interfax is also reporting that Trump allegedly would abandon the ceasefire with Iran only if U.S. troops were killed there. U.S. President Donald Trump accused his aides. What? U.S. President Donald Trump reassured his aides that he would abandon the current ceasefire with Iran only if American troops were killed. Wall Street Journal reported originally about it, at least Interfax says so. Wall Street Journal sources also emphasized that the ceasefire remains in force despite ongoing skirmishes, and skirmishes do happen, by the way. Iran says that they targeted U.S. destroyer in response to U.S. attacks on Iranian assets. SETCOM or U.S. militaries denied any claims that U.S. military assets at sea were targeted or U.S. Navy destroyer was targeted. They all are accounted for. That's what usually they say. I don't know what happened, but what I do know is that there is satellite imagery, by the way, that is available now. And according to these satellite images, there was clearly significant destruction done as a result of Iranian retaliatory strike to a drone or aircraft hangar in Anas Salam Air Base in Kuwait. Right? So you can see the difference, isn't it? That's their place. That's the base, by the way. And clearly this hangar was just completely destroyed. Whatever was inside, plane or a drone, was also neutralized. So yes, there is a skirmishes. There is a skirmishes. We are not talking about full-scale exchange of fire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran yet, but skirmishes are happening basically on daily, every day, basically on every day. And well, I guess the Western ruling class is quite happy with this situation because, I have said many times before, that our main task for Western ruling class in the Middle Eastern chapter of their long-standing decades-old strategy to destroy Russia, China, and to cement dominance of the Western ruling class over the world is to isolate this region from global economy. And unfortunately, partially at least, they did manage to achieve this goal. And as I reported earlier, dear friends, based on statements of Novak, Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, there is a 12 million barrel a day shortage on the world energy market. And that's oil alone, right? Nothing to be said about petroproducts and nothing to be said about fertilizers. And one should keep in mind that Middle East is also a bigger player when it comes to fertilizer market. And so unfortunately, Western ruling class is succeeding. Looks like they are partially, not 100%, but partially they are succeeding in their plans in regards to the Middle Eastern chapter, because in several months' time, energy crisis, global energy crisis will begin hitting harder world economies, leading economies in this world, right? Some of the economies already are feeling pain, but give it a couple of months and situation gonna get much worse. And if including in China or for China, by the way, and because China has the biggest, according to reports, China had at least the biggest strategical oil reserves. And of course, they are using these reserves now, they have to. And simultaneously, they are increasing the oil imports from Russian Federation. And they increased oil supplies from Russia by 30%, approximately 30% already compared to previous year, which is a massive jump, right? Which is a massive jump. And that also makes Western ruling class happier because that's exactly what they want. They want one of their tasks of their Middle Eastern chapter is to achieve exactly that, to isolate Middle East from global economy and force China to increase its dependence on Russian energy up to a critical level. And they want this, as you know, as I have said many times, and if you have listened to those my programs, that West wants this to happen because I guess Western ruling class is quite sure that they have big enough and powerful enough for assets in both, in Russia and China, in both countries, to use them to create tensions between Moscow and Beijing. At point when China will be fully dependent on Russian energy supplies, and by doing so, Western ruling class will try to put fear in Beijing that they are losing Moscow, which will mean in that case collapse of Chinese economy, and they will force China to go for a military solution, to try and secure closest energy fields by military means, and that will of course mean confrontation between the two, right? Between Russia and China, and many other countries will ultimately get involved, and that will be end of. At least that's their plans that Western elites have, in my understanding. That this way they will neutralize both Russia and China. They will neutralize also global South, generally speaking, and they will kill multipolar idea even of multipolarity, and there will be nothing left that can challenge dominance of the Western elites in this world, right? That's the trajectory, that's the direction that world is heading, clearly, in my personal opinion. But anyways, what I have bookmarked. Hezbollah, according to reports, by the way, in Washington, there was another round of negotiations between Israeli representatives and representatives of Lebanese government, which is only on the paper Lebanese government. In reality, these are puppets of Israel and Washington, obviously, that call themselves Lebanese government. So these groups had a meeting in Washington, and they agreed to renew ceasefire, and they demanded Hezbollah to withdraw from southern Israel, which is crazy, right? Hezbollah is the only force, really, only serious or truly capable, let's say, force that is at least trying to deter Israel. And the Lebanese so-called government is on the same page with Israel in this demand that Hezbollah should stop defending Lebanese people. This is insanity, man. This is just freaking insanity, right? If Lebanese army was defending Lebanese people, then Hezbollah, in that case, will say, you know what? I mean, we have a great army here, and they're fighting, so let's join their army and fight that way. But because Lebanese army is a joke and also controlled by Israel, right? Then what choice do their Lebanese people have? Not just Shiites, by the way, but all of them, Shiites, Sunnis, Christians, atheists, by the way. What choice do they have but to join only force that is actually fighting against their Israeli aggressors? And there is no ceasefire, by the way. Renewed, not renewed. There is no ceasefire. Israel is not holding fire, and already reports are coming in that Israel targeted number of areas throughout the southern Lebanon, and any moment they might go for Beirut also. How many times they did it already? And while this continues, of course, according to reports from Iran, there is no negotiations, not indirect talks, no more between Tehran and Washington. Vzglyad newspaper also reporting that Germany has failed miserably in the UN Security Council elections. First time, basically, in a very long time, Germany is no longer a member of the temporary member of their Security Council. UN General Assembly has rejected Germany's request for a non-permanent seat on the Security Council, giving their preference to Portugal and Austria, aimed their chancellor's political difficulties, whatever that means. And by the way, German Foreign Minister Waitpool, or whatever his freaking name is, find straight away who to be blamed for the failure of the Germany to secure enough votes in UN, and you guess who he blamed? Russia, of course. Somehow, this is also Russia's fault that UN member states are not in support of Germany to be non-permanent member in the Security Council. They prefer Austria and Portugal, and the country to join non-permanent members should get 127, I believe, votes from UN members, at least. Both Portugal and Austria got around 130, right? And Germany got 107 or something like that. So not enough. Not enough. So they went after Russia. It's Russia's fault. Yeah, man. Is anything happening in the Western world that is not Russia's fault nowadays? I mean, honestly, is anything happening that is not Russia's fault? According to Western elites, at least. And I will end this news segment, dear friends, on this news that U.S. journalist confirmed through TASS news agency that he has asked Putin for Russian citizenship. This is the journalist from DD Geopolitics. If you are subscribed to DD Geopolitics, by the way, you know, you're familiar with this person, of course. In that case, American investigative journalist Christopher Helali, international secretary of the Communist Party of the USA. I didn't knew that he was in that party, Communist Party in the US. Jackson Hinkle is also in the Communist Party, isn't it? Something like that. So he asked, basically, Christopher Helali asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for Russian citizenship. The journalist announced this to TASS on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg's International Economic Forum. And, well, good luck, man. What can I say? Good luck. Well, I guess Russian president will consider this, and probably he will give him Russian citizenship. He lives in Russia. DD Geopolitics project is definitely not anti-Russian project, right? So therefore, based on biography of this person, his work, probably decision will be made. And yeah, I mean, why not? He will become a Russian journalist. Many foreigners are, of course, issuing Russian citizenship. What I don't understand, by the way, there is a Kirill Fyodorov, right? He's from Latvia, I believe. Blogger. He has a big Telegram channel big Telegram channel, pro-Russian, patriotic, by the way. He is a media personality here in Russia. He was jailed in Latvia. He was arrested in Latvia, right? Tortured in a prison for his pro-Russian views, by the way. He didn't commit no crime. He was literally arrested and tortured for his pro-Russian standpoint, right? He is a Latvian citizen still, I believe. And he asked many times, by the way, for Russian citizenship. He is in Russia. He is doing pro-Russian work, by the way. He is media personality. He has a Telegram channel that is very patriotic. He is, through his platforms, by the way, he is consolidating big volumes of financial support for Russian militaries, financial support that then transforms into technical support, right? And on daily basis, his platforms are publishing documents about support that they provided to this military unit and that military unit. So they are doing job, man, right? Supporting Russian militaries directly. And Kirill Fyodorov still has no Russian citizenship, man. What the hell? How this stuff works, man. I got Russian citizenship after 11 years. I ended up in Russia in 2009, right? And from 2009 to 2021, I was a stateless person because the regime, Saakashvili's regime in Georgia, faked my personal data, and they revoked my Georgian citizenship unlawfully, absolutely unlawfully, obviously, right? And since that moment, I was stateless person, and I had a refugee status here in Russia, and I was fighting to return my Georgian citizenship. By the way, I tried. At some point, it became too freaking dangerous, and I said, you know what? I had enough of a fight, right, with the regime, with the system. So, F it, right? I'm not gonna risk her no more, especially with the health and life of close ones, right? Friends and relatives and stuff. So I stopped fighting. I give up on this attempt to return Georgian citizenship. And after that decision was made, then basically it was logical that I should then try to apply for Russian citizenship, because you cannot be a stateless person forever, right? And eventually I was stateless, as I said, like 10 years, from more than 10 years, 11 years, right? From 2009 and up to 2021. So it took quite a lot for me to become a Russian citizen. And looks like for Kirill Fyodorov is happening the same, right? Maybe he will need also, I don't know, 10-year plus to become Russian citizen. But same time, there are other people that are getting Russian citizenship much easier, much quicker, and maybe Christopher will be among those people that will get Russian citizenship very fast. Who knows? Good luck, anyways, man. I believe he's a good person, right? Good person, and Russia needs good people. Russia needs good people, so it is what it is, and. That's Christopher. I mean, I see a question here. Rutherford is commenting. What is his name? Christopher is his name. He's a DD Geopolitics. He's from DD Geopolitics, by the way. And so, dear friends, that's being said, that's about it for a new segment. And before I end, let me check. There was a super chat, dear friends, on Rumble, and also there was donation through PayPal. So let me react, if I may. So. And so, dear friends, let me react. There was a donation through PayPal. Thank you very much, Patrick, for your donation of $20 through PayPal during this stream. Truly appreciate your support. And Patrick is commenting, you and your family stay safe. Thank you very much for your kind words and donation. Thank you. And there was a super chat, dear friends, on Rumble. Oh, in middle of the program, I forgot to drop link to my Rumble channel, dear friends. Well, that's my bad. I will do it now. If you have a Rumble account, dear community, I just dropped in a YouTube chat a link to my Rumble channel where this very same live stream is on right now. And if you have an account on Rumble, please consider to subscribe to my channel there. And this is a super chat from Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your second super chatter and their second donation of $2. Scooby is commenting, drones are increasingly cheap and increasingly active. Air defense is increasingly costly. USA, Ukraine has the same problem Russia has in this regard. Yes, I mean, it's just too difficult and they're costly, right, to deal with these cheap drones with very expensive interceptor missiles. It's not just missiles, obviously, that are used. There are mobile air defense units that are using large caliber machine guns, right, or cannons to destroy low-flying drones. Or there are manpads, obviously. They are used also in some cases. There are helicopter aviation that is deployed there time to time to deal with these drones with their cannons, onboard cannons, or the missiles. In some cases, even fighter jets are deployed, right? Nothing to be said about interceptors for S-300 or S-400. Those interceptors cost a tremendous amount of money. And so, yes, it is difficult. It is difficult to deal with these cheap drones with interceptor missiles alone. And the only way we can deal with this situation is to neutralize basically production lines, and those production lines are in NATO member states. Either we have to take out those production lines in Europe, or come on now, I don't like this, man. Please, dear friends, be nice to each other. Please, I mean, don't make me block anybody. I hate this, man. Please, let's agree to disagree whenever we have some disagreements. Let's tolerate other opinions, right? And let's be nice to each other, by the way, right? Whatever you want about politicians, public figures, and all that kind of stuff, right? But let's be very polite to each other, because we are ordinary people, man, right? We are ordinary people. Please, let's be polite to each other. Okay. And so, Scooby, I agree with you. This is an issue. This is a big issue that everybody is facing now, right? Especially countries that are engaged in military operations. These cheap drones are, at least for now, changing their battlefield. They're big time. And let's see what kind of solutions engineers will come up with. And they will come up with solutions. So I expect relatively quick deployment of EMP weapons, EMP systems, electromagnetic pulse systems, right? That will fry basically all the chips in everything that will fly in area of work of this particular system. And maybe even this summer we will see relatively mass deployment of these EMP systems. Me personally see only this solution. I mean, what else can work, really? EMP, at least you know that it will fry chips of these drones, and they're not gonna be able to fly. They will just fail, right? What else can be done? Interceptor drones. Okay, interceptor drones can cost also less, but and they are deployed. Interceptor drones are also deployed quite widely, but EMP is probably direction that engineers are working right now, big time, in all countries that have a technological base for that, right? So thank you very much, Scooby. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat and donation. And well, that's about it for today, dear friends. Relatively long update, 2.5 hours for goodness me, man. But there are so many news, isn't it? So many news. Hopefully, you will find update informative and useful. And in that case, like the video if you have not yet. Leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithms and to reach wider audience potentially. So might help. Thank you all, dear friends, for your attention, for your support. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye for now.